Pressed 981. That's the hashtag you need to use up on Twitter. The hashtag is freshly pressed 981. You can also send us messages to our WhatsApp number, which we will tweet to you in just a bit. So next, Tunde, let's go over and talk about altruistic actions towards Nigeria, shall we? The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation are making the headline news here. Federal government's economic blueprint does not address Nigerians' needs. That is what the chairman of the Bill and Melinda Foundation, that's Bill Gates, said in Thursday in Abuja. They were talking about the federal government's economic recovery and growth plan, and they described it as a document which identifies investment in the people but fails to reflect it in its implementation. It does go on to some extent. It is quite a lengthy article. They talk about admonishing the system. Quite interesting. What's your take on this story?
Yeah, like you pointed out, it is a very lengthy article, and I encourage everyone to go read it. Since you started with altruistic motives, let me begin with that as well. For me, so I've observed and looked at the Bill and Melinda Gates activities in Africa for a very long time now.
It's been on the rise.
Yeah, they've been very active in Africa, and in particular in Nigeria. They've invested the most in Nigeria, 1.6 is it $1 million now? $1.6 billion.
Yes,
actually.
it's a lot.
Quite significant funds, and for the work they do, it's very capital intensive. Now, the only altruistic thing that I've noticed in all the activities across Africa is the right to do things like this, which is, point the finger at the government of the day.
Okay.
Right. And when you take handouts from people, then you would expect that this sort of thing will happen.
Yeah.
And what he's pointed out about our ERGP, which is economic.
Recovery.
You know how we like
recovery.
You know how we like
growth
that.
plan.
We love acronyms.
Economic recovery growth
And
plan.
we think all's well with the world. What he's pointed out is it's very low on equilibrium, right? So it's a great document, as always. So knowing what to do has never been a problem, but this is the execution and what we prioritize that's always been the issue. Now the core of his message here is that look, it's low on equilibrium because it's not tilted towards the thing that makes the people thrive. A lot of our long-term plans are around physical capital, so infrastructure. But you need to balance that against healthcare. You need to balance that against education and investing in human capital. Nigeria is one of the worst places is one of the most dangerous places to have a child in, right? It's one of the most dangerous places for human capital, for maternal mortality.
Absolutely.
1 in 3 children are malnourished. So he says, look, if you build roads, it's all well and good to build roads, but if you don't have the people if you don't invest in the people who would maximize and pull the benefits of these infrastructure you're putting in place, then you don't have a sustainable long-term system. And I agree with him that the most important resource we have are the kids and our people. And we don't invest enough in them. I mean, if you look at public schools, you look at where the vast majority of kids have to go. You see those kids. You often look and you're like, really, what are we doing? With our most viable resources.
So
Not
a
all.
lot of social investment, really. Healthcare, education, those sort of sectors.
Yeah.
But it'll be interesting to see how that goes. I mean, the article does go on. You have people like Levi commenting on this as well.
Exactly. Dangote chips in as well. Also reiterating what Bill Gates says. In my mind, I'm thinking, okay, maybe we need to wait until Dangote is ready to invest in healthcare.
I was going to say, I'm very sure there are a couple of things going on in that area already. But let's quickly move on. We do have to move on. Up next from ThisDay newspaper, finally, trial of 4 IPOB members begins as prosecution calls its first witness. The ThisDay newspaper gives us the story because after 2 years of going back and forth, the trial of 4 members of the proscribed indigenous people of Biafra kicks off on Thursday, with the prosecution calling in the first witness, who is an operative of the Department of State Services, DSS. Now it goes on, but Nwaji, I'm going to let you take this story and take us through it.
Well, I mean, we've debated this issue a number of times with regards to the legality of IPOB and also what they're claiming and trying to accomplish. And when you as a group, whether you're political, insurrectionist, or whatever you are, you decide to do things in a violent manner, contravening the law, these are the outcomes of what happens when that law decides to come for you. It is actually quite simple. We recently saw it happen in Spain. Folu, you and I talked about this when they decided to, break away from Spain and everything else, and what the ramifications was. And the leader of that also, incidentally and quite similarly to Nnamdi Kanu, has also taken a leave of absence, because you just cannot do things like that in a democratic society. It's just absolutely impossible. If you have grievances with regards to your regional population or your people, there are particular systems and steps that you can take to go to courts and now file grievances. But when you now begin to take it this way, you will end up in court. So the four IPOB members that are going through prosecution are going through with regards of treasonable, well, they didn't say treasonable, bordering on treasonable felonies that they will now be tried for. There's going to be conversations around that, whether or not their acts or their actions led towards that. Let's go through the process, Nigerians. Let's not get emotional about it. It is a very, very sensitive issue that is deeply appreciated, even from a personal point of view. But at the same time, you cannot allow personal sentiments to come in the way of you breaking the law. If you break the law, these are going to be ramifications. So let's go through the court process and let's see what happens.
It certainly will be a very interesting court process to witness. We know, as you said, there will be emotions involved nonetheless, and the drama most certainly will unfold in the pages of newspapers. But we've got a couple of comments that are coming through.
Yes, we have this one from Emma in Akoka. It says, the gridlock in Apapa is palpable. I do not know how residents and businesses in that area survive.
We didn't.
The truck and tanker drivers are largely victims of the bureaucracy and ineptitude of the port, coupled with bad roads. The economy is bleeding.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, MI. Emo from Ikeja says, why for Merlin's sake can't the other seaports work?
For Merlin's sake,
Yeah, because it's going to take magic, and he's right. So that's why he's Merlin.
And this is in from Yinka, who says, I beg, Uncle Bill Gates was saying all he was saying was Uncle Lai and Bros Femi around, because I can't imagine Bill saying all that and neither of them interjecting to accuse him of lying against the government.
El Rufai tried his bit.
And if they didn't come out to pick holes in what the Weibo man has said, maybe from now on, when we need them to listen to us, we will go through Uncle Bill Gates, says Yinka. Interesting. Very dramatic turn of events when it comes to a cleaner Lagos. That's what we're moving on to. Refuse. Lagos Assembly halts further payments to Visionscape from the New Telegraph. Miss Ireti, let's talk about this. So worried.
Let's talk rubbish.
Yes, let's actually talk rubbish. Literally, heaps of refuse. We see it scattered across Lagos State, and people have been rather concerned. The State House of Assembly yesterday summoned 3 commissioners, permanent secretaries, and the Accountant General to brief the House on the issues surrounding the handing over of the state's environmental matters to Visionscape. Mr. Ireti, I'm going to let you go into it.
Well, I won't go into rubbish, but I'll talk about rubbish. Yes, so Visionscape. Remember, our dear governor got rid of my Lawma women. I love my Lawma women. I think they're not called Lawma anymore, are they? What are they called now?
Visionscape.
Visionscape. I mean, it's just not the same thing. Visionscape.
Yeah, they used to be Lawma aunties. That's what we used to call them.
I loved my Lawma women, and I think we have to put a campaign out there. Lawma back. Lawma back. Okay, I've started. Right. That's one. Number 2, so Visionscape are clearly distorting our vision. I mean, the one thing they are doing is disturbing our optics, because Lagos is filthy, dirty, it's vomitous, it's you just go on and on and on. And finally they've stopped payment to them. So there was 4 commissioners were summoned, which is Adeniji Kazim, who's the Attorney General, Finance, who's Akinyemi Ashade, the Environment, Babatunde Durosimieti, Accountant General Abimbola Umar, and the House also directed the Commissioner for Finance and Accountant General to henceforth stop further payments to Visionscape. Now you've got to ask yourself, why in Lagos name, should we say, so you don't get a heart attack. Why in Lagos name do you take a system that's working perfectly well and you bring in these people who clearly are inexperienced? They can't cope. I don't know what they were doing before. Perhaps they only cleaned one compound before, but they clearly can't cope with a cleaner Lagos. That's number one.
Isn't it too short a time to judge them now?
No, it is not too short a time. Oh my good God. People are falling sick. I mean, it literally is filth. We have piles of rubbish that's higher than Eco Hotel in some places, and we're on the island. You hear that on the mainland. It's really literally ugly. So no, it's not too early to judge them. Actually, I think what we need to do is somebody needs to speak to our lovely governor. I do love you, but somebody needs to talk to him and say to him, look, it wasn't broken. Let's go back. Let's get our Loma women in. Let's get them cleaning again because they did a very good job.
Very quickly, just before we move on, but is there any concern as to, again, we see the government reneging on agreements, reneging on contracts?
Well, no, this is not reneging on contracts. That's it. So thank you for asking me that. So, of course, in every contract, you have your measurables, you have your matrix, you have your performance matrix, you have all sorts of things, your caveats, your whatever. If they want, it might be, look, the minute we have 1,000, 3,000, 100,000 people in Lagos complaining, your contract is terminated. Whatever it is, there has to be measurable, there has to be matrix that you measure people by, and that's what you measure their performance by. So it's not about reneging. I mean, we should be demanding, how exactly did these Visionscape people come about? Because rumor has it that they know our governor. Is that true?
Well, let's keep
rumor,
it moving.
No, we're asking. Let's stop shying away from asking.
Ireti, hang on. First of all, they're coming in, so we're going to ask them officially.
Yes.
But we don't know. So
we don't know.
That's right
They're
now.
going to be here in the studio.
So we want to know if it's Okuso or Gidi.
So let's move on to our next story.
All right, so our next story is on the pages of ThisDay. It talks about Jonathan Loyalist, who tried to sway 2015 polls with Buhari's hacked emails. So this was a very lengthy and interesting read for us. Nwaji, when I brought the story to you earlier, we went through the 4 pages of the story and discovered how the reactions from the staff, which was quite interesting. Now, in new information on the operations of embattled data analysis firm Cambridge Analytica, has suggested that they played a controversial role in Nigeria's presidential election in 2015, kind of reminiscent with Trump's election as well. But this time around, they said a certain billionaire, Nigerian oil magnate, paid them $2.8 million to that tune to investigate and dig up dirt on Buhari. Some of the staff spoke up as witnesses in this case. It said information that reached them in over 30 years of their experience, the SEL parent company of the Cambridge Analytica, that in over 30 years of their operations, they've never really used a United States security style, armory. Or they call it weaponizing information to harm an opponent. They never used this methodology before. What's your analysis on this?
Well, like you said, when you brought the story to me initially, you see I'm crossing my legs because I had to sit back and just... Cambridge Analytica has been in the news for quite some time, and it's interesting enough because, like the article states at some point within it, that we would not have known about Cambridge Analytica's involvement in the Nigerian political theatre if it wasn't for Donald Trump winning and if it wasn't for Brexit happening in the United Kingdom. Now, these individuals are actually quite intelligent with the way that they data mine information and the way they have access to people to now begin to play intellectual warfare with regards to how we persuade individuals to now vote in particular Democratic campaigns. So what now happens is that when you get on social media platforms, specifically Facebook, and you see sponsored ads, whether it's that in the form of games or any kind of other advertisement for buying things of that nature, once you click on it and you have that privacy statement says, can this particular app have access to your information? So what now happens is that the algorithms now kick in so that they can have access to your information, your data, and what they do is create profiles for the kind of person that you are. They now create narratives and campaigns to now begin to persuade you to vote in a particular manner. What happened in Nigeria, which is actually quite interesting as you read this article, is that it came out with a lot of sentiments with regards to Buhari's personality, his educational qualifications, his religion, his health,
medical records.
Exactly, and all those particular things. Do you want to vote for a sick, dying man? We all remember that. Do you want a country where it will now be Sharia
and
law?
we heard that kind of rhetoric
exactly.
from
That
Jonathan's
was all
camp as well.
campaign. That was all Cambridge Analytica. Do you want to have more prisons going back to what he did back in 1983 when he was military dictator? All these particular things now begin to come up.
Do you want to live under Sharia?
Thank you very much. So all these things are sentiments whipped up by Cambridge Analytica. Now, what happened, interestingly enough, in 2015 is because ordinarily this kind of thing, with the intensity of the campaign, they should have won. But what happened with APC at that time, which was actually quite industrious, I don't know whether or not it was intentional, but they now happen to hire David Axelrod, who ran AKPD. And they're the ones who put the machinery in place for APC to actually win. And they ran a very, very Obama-esque campaign where they just switched the word change to hope. It was actually very beautiful, very masterful, where they put Buhari as the leader of the new Nigeria, the individual that's going to take you from point A to point B, that's going to change your status, change your life, change your economic situation, and overall just change everything about you. So that pretty much countered the negative rhetoric that you were hearing from the Jonathan campaign, which was very heavily fueled by Cambridge Analytica. Now, You know, Valentine, this has been going on for a long time. It's happened in different ways. You have had these lobby interest groups involve themselves in all sorts of political and non-political situations around the world, and specifically in Africa and Nigeria, for a very, very long time.
Exactly.
It happened back in 1992 when MKO Abiola ran for office, where America and UK had their hands heavy in that pot. And when President at that time, IBB, saw what was happening, he annulled the election. So it's nothing new. These kind of groups have existed, not as sophisticated, because it's obviously time, technology, and everything else that fuel that. But it's a good thing that's coming out, because we all need to be aware that when these political entities or these lobby groups or these consultants now come in to offer their services, security agencies, regulatory agencies need to be very watchful that they're just not coming in with good intentions. They're actually coming in to possibly wreck the situation that you find yourselves in.
Exactly. It's going to make an interesting read if you go to the pages of ThisDay to go through the details later on.
Very quickly, for people asking when Visionscape are coming in, they are meant to be visiting on Wednesday the 28th.
Who's coming in?
Visionscape.
They're coming in for
The not Loma people.
Lagos Talks on Wednesday the 28th. So you can
We
tune
will
in
be
for
here.
that.
Okay. All right, Miss Ireti. I have more messages to check. All right. Please tune into, of course, our stream on YouTube, youtube.com/smooth981FM Lagos. This next story, I'll come to you, Tunde, with this one from The Punch. Senate confirms Buhari's nominees for CBN governors MPC. So we've been waiting for this. Finally, it happened. What's interesting about this story, about the Senate confirming the appointments of Mrs. Aisha Ahmad and Mr. Edward Adamu as deputy governors of the CBN, is that it rejected one of the nominees, Mr. Maudugu. He said it was considered not qualified to occupy the position for which he was nominated. Specifically mentioned that they felt concerned that the regular civil servant was burdened with bureaucracy and red tape may not be independent in his judgments when he was asked questions, you know, regarding his appointments to the...
Okay, let me start there, since that's what I don't agree with that position now. If it's purely based on this, I don't agree. The key question is skill, and because you're a civil servant doesn't necessarily mean it's about the individual. So when you do these screenings, you look at track record. I don't know the individual personally, but those are based on their responses and or the sort of the reason. You look at a person's track record, you see how he has operated has he clearly commanded the weight of influence of in his past. And well, if that's the case, then as they've suggested, the presidency needs to nominate someone else, if indeed and truly because of his position. I mean, he's a civil servant. He's unable to do the job, but it's good. This is important because we know the MPC hasn't been able to sit for a while, and that has economic, very clear economic implications, and we've everyone, the legislation and the executive have sort of treated this with some degree of laxity. They've approved. There are two more nominees, pending to be approved for the MPC to be complete. They should please move on that very quickly. It has an impact on us. And usually, economic indices they're lagging indicators, right? It's a reflection of what's happening. So this Alpha thing is causing problems. We will not know until later. Which time will that be? So that's the MPC side. The CBN side, Mrs. Aisha Ahmed, which is a very qualified lady, but why they only had beautiful pictures that they circulate on social
and
media?
They
just take away from.
It's so annoying.
I don't know.
A couple of messages again very quickly. We have Shegun Martins, who says, in my opinion, this approach by Visionscape isn't working. Let's go back to the days of Loma. Bring back our Loma, he says.
Bring back our Loma.
While Tony Jiro says, those were facts about... no, we're not reading that, please. That is completely rude, and it's an opinion. Ife says, the story of our great country. When something is working, let's go ahead and change it, as against making it better.
Exactly.
I don't get it. One question for Visionscape, what was going through their mind when they were trying to get a contract to clean up Lagos, he asks. They will be on again Wednesday. And we have Big E from K2 says, all I can say is that we should all be ready to vote out bad leaders, the same way the youth channel their power into voting for I don't know who that is, but for a particular person. Let's carry on with more
I like
stories.
that. So from the Guardian this morning, we heard about the release of the schoolgirls 2 days ago. The 110 Dapchi girls, apparently out of them 104 released. So the presidency yesterday vowed to secure the release of the lone Dapchi schoolgirl, that's Leah Sharibu, who's still being held by Boko Haram terrorists for refusing to renounce her Christian faith. Ms. Ireti, very quickly.
Yes, very quickly. I did say yesterday there's a girl that hasn't come back. I hope we're not going to forget her. And I'm glad to see everybody's talking about her because she is the person we should be talking about right now. She refused to denounce her Christian faith, and so they're still holding on to her. The president has said he will continue to fight for her, but I'll move on very quickly from that. I did have to mention that. Apparently, so he was in Guzor, which is in Zamfara State. In Guzor, he starts to talk about there's a killer called Buhari Daji, apparently, who had for many years initiated killings and destruction of property in that area. So he would appear that he's actually a serial killer, robber, whatever it is, a serial no person. And I think there's a focus on trying to eliminate him. So he's talking to the security officials in that area to up their intelligence strategy, etc., to try and catch him. What I always want to ask is, who is the equivalent of our Home Secretary or Armed Forces Minister in Nigeria? Who?
It's meant to be the Minister of Interior, I think. The Interior Minister.
Right, he's clearly not interior in nothing. He couldn't interior if they gave him fabric.
All right, so
Gosh.
boy. All right, so Guardian is the same Guardian. We have this other story that caught our interest. House of Representatives moves to curb excessive electricity charges. So the House of Reps yesterday said it will meet with community development associations in different geopolitical zones in the course of the ad hoc committee assignment to curb excessive electricity charges. Tunde, this has been a problem. They gave them March 1st, 2017 to phase out estimated billing system. This is March 23rd, 2018.
So while community development is essential and important, look, to solve this problem is prepaid meters. Yeah, the issue is estimated billing from people who still use the old style metering system. A prepaid meter would sort this out. There are new initiatives out there about private individuals being able to provide meters. So let's get with it.
Okay. That's not much we can take. I'll see a few messages we can touch on.
That's pretty much we are done for this morning inside a Freshly Pressed. Couple of messages coming through on WhatsApp. Let's see what we can get through. Sunday says that the negative rhetoric succeeded against Buhari in the southeast, though. He says very simply. While PC sends a message saying without prejudice, I believe the waste management company are just a scam. Please look at their site. No serious content, no proof of a track record. Stock pictures were used unless they have upgraded it, he says. While Olufemi says, Miss Ireti has killed me this morning, or he couldn't interior if you gave him fabric. Hashtag no chill, hashtag savage. And that's it. Thank you very much for coming in. Please find them up on social media. We're still streaming on YouTube, so maybe we'll chat a little bit off the air. So go over to youtube.com/smooth981FM Lagos. Hit the subscribe button. That way you're alerted every time we go live. And find our analysts up on social media, on Twitter. At Big Kuffs is Tunde Okufi. At Sisioke Lagos is Mr. Ireti Bakare Yusuf. And at the corporate MC with a K is
And I'm on
Nwaji.
Instagram.
And on Instagram.
They
And
can see my face.
Yes,
They're allowed.
but mostly here on our YouTube channel.
Ownership.
Wow.
Ownership.
Yeah.
Well, have you heard of that interior minister? I haven't got a clue who he is. He might as well be under the sofa or something. I mean, what the fuck? No, is it me or I just keep thinking, hang on, we've had all these issues going on.
Yo, that person
We haven't heard one word.
Maybe
we don't have one.
He's a sadist.
Too often we have people who don't have a handle on their
I
book.
genuinely
why?
I understand that they
Allowed to
actually
have a handle on their
sacked
portfolio.
some of those women last year, like December, then called them back. Later.
Yeah, what you mean? Yeah, no,
Visionscape
Visionscape
thing
took
is-
them back
It's a
on.
Lagos State scam.
But
It's an
Visionscape is
Afro-State
Amber Day somebody.
They sold it. I need to really. I haven't spent time to research the company itself.
No,
But they
you
sold
don't
this-
need to.
They
There's
sold
not
this
much to
idea that they
research.
sold this idea about them being the guys who handle waste management in Dubai.
There's nothing to
Right.
research. Go on their
So they're
page. Go on
not,
their
yeah.
page.
So everything was
Nothing.
just so fake news.
Amber
just
Day
generated
somebody.
stories.
They are Amber Day somebody. Please, can
And
we
we've given
please
them-
be
we've
here?
given them-
I
we've
want to
given
know
them-
when
we've
they're
given them
coming in.
states
I'd like to
assets
be
I'm
here.
gonna
because,
send
you know,
them
the
Yeah.
lawma was
Yeah.
the state. Was
Ah, they are. Look, I don't even care. Call them
It's a huge
Nwaji's escape button. Call them Ireti's flying big mouth. Call them whatever. But can we keep them as Loma women? I mean, these things, Loma, Lagos State, waste
for those ladies. I love
management. You know,
Authority.
it's lovely.
They're actually
Can we
quite
just keep?
effective.
They become a tourist attraction. Oh, there's my Loma women.
Besides,
I
they were
was
doing
so
a good
proud.
job, fantastic job. The roads were so
They were
clean.
doing such a
Every
fantastic,
morning
and you have the
Folu
audacity
said that is
and bring this
what
ugly
insulting
green thing.
Oh, it was bad.
Did someone say?
It was bad. He said
like
that,
he's a
that those
sadist,
things
he's
about
a
Buhari
whatever.
were true.
Oh,
That
come
he's a
on.
racist, no, he's sadist, he's old.
Oh,
in
yeah.
depth. I was just like,
I'm just like-
When you look at
There's
when
no
you-
way you're
That's
gonna
not-
read.
that's not
when you look at
constructive.
when you
There's
look
no
at
way you're gonna read that.
when you look at the stuff that Cambridge Analysts